Well, Democrats are not necessarily big fans of when Darrell Issa, the House Oversight Chair, has a history of pointing out corruption and abuse in some of their favorite agencies. But now he has set his sights on the Export-Import Bank. That's an organization that encourages foreign countries to buy from U.S. Companies. And now there have been indications of right-wing abuse. And all of a sudden, the California Republican is warring with conservatives and liberals. Conservatives who say just get rid of the Export-Import Bank, and others who say no, go slow. So, Congressman, here you are in the middle of this mess. How big is this scandal? Now, we're told 40 different incidents of corruption, payoffs, and the like. A lot of people see that and say, well, that's a bad bank, shut it down. You say what?
Well, it's the only one of its kind, and since the 1930s, it has promoted and encouraged and financed export of American produced products, creating American jobs and American wealth. So it's a pretty essential item to have. It's never been controversial on renewing, but with 4 convictions, 4 people who actually, 3 of whom have been dismissed, that started almost a decade ago. The process of getting rid of people who do wrong at XM Bank is way too long. The IG identified approximately 40 ongoing cases. The question we have that has to be answered is, how do we make it more transparent? How do we make sure the corruption's rooted out quickly so we can have confidence in a bank that we rely on to help promote exports?
Do we really need it that badly, Congressman? I know some of the numbers are that China supports, you know, its various companies getting business from abroad to the tune of north of $150 billion a year. I mean, all the European companies and countries together, you know, provide a similar amount. And here we are, I guess, in the $27, $28 billion neck of the woods. Would it make that big a difference if it were not there?
Well, first of all, remember, the bank is self-sustaining, so we're not looking at taxpayer dollars being spent unless the bank is run poorly. Right now is run from a fiscal standpoint fairly well. But let's look at Europe versus the United States. They have Airbus, we have Boeing. Both of these companies compete in a world market where the financing package is part of the process, and the financing dollars are so great that it really would reduce Boeing's ability to meet demand, particularly on the 787 Dreamliner and others, if they didn't have a bank like XM. So do we need to maintain this bank? Yes. But is there a whole lot of cleaning up to do, and we shouldn't reauthorize for a long period of time without putting those in place? Absolutely. The American people are at risk if this bank is poorly run. If it's properly run, it is a self-sustaining entity that costs the American taxpayer nothing.
That is the hope. When you alluded to Airbus, of course, it is a European consortium, so obviously it has the muscle of a lot of European countries behind it when it competes on bids with Boeing. You're quite right. But there is this other view here that if we need the prop of an agency like this at a time like this, then we're hurting more than we think. Are you saying that even with these scandals, even with this abuse and these payoffs, and like I say, 40-some-odd instances of this type of activity, that it's still worth it in the end? Do we get that much bang? I know not for the taxpayer buck, but it does come back to us. Is it really worth it?
Well, I've been an exporter, and I know what it's like competing in countries where we don't bribe, the other side does. We don't have deep pockets of a country directly backing us, and having the financing of the XM Bank in hand when you want to make a deal, having that loan guarantee can make all the difference in your being able to offer a loan or not. And
are you surprised, then, Congressman? I'm sorry, sir. Are you surprised that you've encountered more resistance on the right than you have so far on the left on this particular scandal?
Well, it's not surprising. It's been one of the challenges that I think the XM Bank and other agencies have faced. They've been around a long time. They've done a certain amount of good, and everybody says, well, haven't they run their course? Well, in a world market where other countries are providing a similar incentive for taking their products, it does make a difference that we have an equivalent, and it's an equivalent that our domestic banks are not always prepared to make. So can we make this bank work better, make sure that it doesn't risk taxpayer dollars? Absolutely. But should we end something that's promoting the sale of GE, Boeing, and thousands of smaller companies that most people don't know the name of? Of course not. It is important. Remember, Domestic jobs created by export is the greatest win-win we have as Americans. Importing products from other countries where the jobs are outside our country is part of our problem. So I think XM's part of the solution, but I want to make sure it's open and honest and accountable. Right now, it isn't.
All right. We'll watch very closely. Always good seeing you, Congressman. Be well.
Thank you.